Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and there's a lot of weird things to go over in this video today. From Stalker 2 getting cooked by critics and Russia demanding people not buy the game, to recently the Golden Joystick Awards also happened, which announced all of its winners. And there's a clear decision here that has angered many a games journalist across the industry that I want to discuss. Beyond this, Wars Outlaws is getting changed, but is it enough to turn things around, or is it too little too late? Firstly, let's talk about Stalker 2. So in case you don't know, this is a game that just came out and it's getting absolutely cooked in reviews and player feedback, for being even too janky to be considered worthy of the term Eurojank. The game was created by Ukrainian devs, which of course has caused some contention due to the whole war thing going on within that region. And this has led to some very weird controversies that we now have to talk about. First, let's start with this Rolling Stone article which is titled, Stalker 2 makes the war in Ukraine into a playable nightmare. Developed mid-invasion, Heart of Chernobyl is a game about Ukraine's bloody past that now mirrors its present. God damn, if that ain't an eyebrow-raising headline, then I don't know what is. In case you don't know, Stalker 2 was made amidst the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. For obvious political reasons, this has caused this game's existence to skyrocket in notoriety, and it's causing a stir, to put it lightly. If you don't know what Stalker is, basically, it's an alternate reality story where the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear meltdown results in dozens of kilometers of land being turned into this place called the Zone, where things like physics and pretty much everything else just loses all meaning, and then really weird things start happening all over. Not to mention the wildlife that exists within the zone isn't exactly normal anymore due to, the whole meltdown thing happening. And these artifacts that are within the zone are affected by this nuclear event that are then being highly sought after. So then these mercenaries basically travel into the zone to risk their lives for profit by finding these artifacts while surviving the hellscape around them and each other. It's a compelling concept for a game, and hey, I love more games set in places that aren't New York City myself, so I'm all for it. Stalker 2 was developed by GSC Game World, which had to flee Ukraine during the invasion. The team is now predominantly within Prague, and there's even videos online showing the hellish conditions that some devs had to work in, which I don't think I can even show them on YouTube myself without this video being age restricted. Point being, the game has been made in hell and represents the hell in which it is reflecting within. The story director for Stalker 2, whose name is Yaroslav Kravchenko, spoke to Rolling Stone in September, saying the harsh realities they lived in bled into the game itself. He said, "We see things differently now through the prism of war." Even the main character of the game, whose name is Skiff, is someone who had to flee Ukraine due to the hell around them as well. As the team behind Stalker stated, the game is meant to be an anti-power fantasy experience. You don't level up, you only get stronger by finding better items. You have weight capacities, you have to eat, and find resources to survive, and most of the guns that you use will jam when you use them in fights as they wither from combat and being exposed to the radiation of the zone. Overall, it's a game that was made to convey the hell of the world to players who live outside of it. Sadly, the game doesn't run well at all right now, with many reviewers stating while a gorgeous game with a lot to offer, it simply doesn't run well enough to recommend, yet anyway. Stalker 2 seems like the kind of game that'll be amazing come a year from now, but personally, regardless of its hellish origins, the point remains that a game should be fully functional at launch if there is a price tag attached to it. As one user said on Twitter, the Stalker 2 team has gone through literal hell to get this game over the line. If there's anybody who deserves to be cut some slack in time to fix bugs and issues, it's them. While understandable to a degree, the unfortunate truth is that this is still a product that is being sold for money. And whether your game had trials and tribulations or an easy development cycle, you should not release your games in broken states. Especially when it's been over 15 years since the last true Stalker game had come out. Players have understandably been waiting a very long time for this one to come out. But it's still a weird situation to be in, but I do fall more in line with the camp that the issues behind the scenes should not be a concern to the customer when buying it. It doesn't matter what the chef had to go through to make your meal, all that really matters is that the meal is worth what you pay for. I'm not trying to sound dehumanizing here, but I think we need to be honest with ourselves. There's far too much competition out there already, And games obviously cost a lot to make and buy too. You should not be releasing something if it doesn't work properly, in my opinion. Their best choice would be to obviously delay the game and fix it enough to reach a more playable state. Sure, that would mean missing your holiday window, but the alternative is that while having strong initial sales, I mean Stalker 2 did break 100,000 players on Steam already, which good for them, those numbers would be far higher if they released something that properly worked as intended. It's also bizarre to me that out of any industry that games are the only one where people almost expect things to not work half the time, yet still be obligated to pay for things full price. In no other industries is really a thing. You don't buy a car expecting the brakes not to work. And you don't go and buy food at a restaurant knowing that it might be missing ingredients or it could be spoiled. Yet with games, it's just a common thing that happens these days. I understand a bug or two at launch for these big open world games especially, but not to the point where the game can't even run for most players and then some. Of course, this also adds to the more political side of this game, where for example Videogamer.com had their article titled, "Buying Stalker 2 in Russia may be deemed as terrorism as government considers extreme ban." Unfortunately, this is a real thing that is being pushed by Russia's government that will have even further implications on this game and its team going forward. So what's happening here? Well, this was originally reported by RIA Novosti, which is a Russian state-owned news outlet. One of the leads of this outlet, whose name is Anton Gorlecki, was founded stating that if players within Russia buy Stalker 2, they could be imprisoned or accused of terrorism by doing so if they're discovered. Especially if players are found to be buying and playing the game within Russia by using something to mask their activity, like a VPN for example. It stated that if players are found playing Stalker 2 within Russia, it will be considered as treason, and Russian players will be treated as if they were supporting a hostile force, as the article claims. If players are discovered to be engaging with the Ukrainian piece of content, they could even face jail time or have to pay a fine at the very least. Apparently, Stalker 2 is currently being investigated by Russian officials to determine whether the game has content that is considered extremist rhetoric or justifies terrorism or harm upon Russia's image or its people. It is also being called anti-Russian for what the game perceives the Chernobyl accident as, and that the game paints Russia in a bad light. I should also state as of right now that you cannot legally buy Stalker 2 within Russia on any digital storefront or in physical form either. The game is effectively banned completely within the country's marketplace, so of course the only way to play it right now is through VPNs or God knows what other way they could find. The point being is that Russian officials, according to these Russian state-owned websites, as well as Videogamer and VGC.com, that this is actually real and is happening. I didn't believe it at first, but in my opinion, this will only blow up in the detractors' faces when it comes to the support surrounding Stalker. I would wager, as this story becomes more widespread as the days pass on, that people outside of Russia especially will buy the game just to spite the Russian officials. Demanding that players don't buy something because you don't agree with it has never actually worked. We all know this. How many times have games journalists claimed you can't support this thing or you're a bigot? The most obvious comparison here is Hogwarts Legacy. Plenty of websites and journalists rallied to pressure players into not buying the game. And of course, that did nothing but strive and affect the game's popularity into the stratosphere. I feel as though we may be seeing something similar here with Stalker 2, although to the same degree I cannot say 100%. However, due to the obvious, very shaky political ramifications of what's going on here, Stalker 2 is being used as a cultural lightning rod to bring attention to issues that go beyond just the game itself. And while the game is buggy at launch, and I do not agree it should have been sold in the state that it is right now, I think this is one of those very rare instances where actually I think people showing support could maybe be a good thing overall in the long run. I don't believe that countries, nor politicians, should have a right to enforce their will onto you, the player or the citizen, as to what you can or cannot enjoy. Frankly, what these Russian outlets are claiming, it's not fair of them to do this. I know governments don't care about things being fair, but I think it's up to us as people outside of these areas of conflict to speak when others can't. And the fact that Russia is going as far as blocking the game entirely and vowing to imprison you for playing a game because it's set in Chernobyl is ridiculous to me on all accounts. This reminds me of the whole 6 Days in Fallujah situation too, and how politically driven that game's existence is as well. But I think that if Stalker's devs or if other platforms bend the knee in terms of what Russia wants or doesn't want available to their customers, it's going to be a big hit against free speech. I don't speak for everyone, of course, but I think limiting people's abilities to experience things is simply just going to make them want to experience it even more. Although I could see Russian Xbox players or the eventual PlayStation, port whenever that comes out too, I guess, it probably won't be available in the Russian storefronts either. I think Stalker 2 has enough problems as is when it comes to the game's performance and whatnot, but now having to deal with not only the invasion of your country, but now the suppression of your artistic integrity too? You want my personal opinion? This is going to blow up this game's reach and visibility to, pun intended, nuclear levels of reception. I haven't really seen many people covering this story. Hopefully this video brings this to the attention of more people so that we can get a conversation going. Now that I've discovered this whole Russia doesn't want you to play this connection, oh yeah, you better bet I'm going to be keeping my ear close to the situation in case more info comes out. And if anyone who worked on the game wants to speak to me in secret about these things, please let me know too. I hate censorship in all of its forms. I don't care what it is. If you're limiting someone's ability to speak, I find that to be horrible and disgusting. But that's what I got on Stalker 2 right now. Let's now move on to Black Myth Wukong and Outlaws, because there's still plenty more to talk about. In case you didn't know, the Golden Joystick Awards happened, and none other than Black Myth Wukong won the ultimate coveted award of Game of the Year, if you can believe it. This is incredible for game science. I truly think that Wukong was one of the best games of the year for sure. It also won Best Visual Design, which I mean, yeah, I agree with that win too. The game's artistic quality is just off the charts. From beginning to end, Wukong wows you with amazing landscapes, incredible boss fights, and intricately designed cutscenes too. And the best part about Wukong is that there's no pandering, there's no agenda, nothing. It's just a straight up, honest to God action RPG game that doesn't talk down to you or waste your time with stupid crap like pronouns and whatnot. It feels like you're playing a PS2 action RPG, but in the best way possible, if that makes sense. I 100%ed Wukong when it came out. I did 2 playthroughs and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I guess my only real complaint is I wish the game had more weapon types for the player to use beyond the staff. But seeing as how Wukong has sold close to what Elden Ring has in like half the time, mind you, it's fair to say that Wukong will get a sequel. Plus it has DLC coming out later next year, which has been confirmed already too. I would love to slash weirdos with a big sword as a monkey, or use quick gauntlets to fight back and strike my foes. Regardless, Wukong is a standout game in every way. It already looked like a game that was too good to be true when it first got announced. Like a tech demo for something you wish could be playable, but there's no way it could be. But then you play it and you kinda just go, holy crap, this game is the real deal in every way. Seriously, if you haven't played Wukong, I implore you to do so. It's everything you want from a modern video game. No politics, no agenda, no nothing. No microtransactions or battle passes. It's just a straight up action RPG Souls-like that offers some of the best moments and boss fights this year has to offer. And to see it win like this is amazing, so congrats to Game Science. However, of course, not everybody is stoked about this. A lot, and I mean a lot of gaming websites, are not happy this game got nominated, let alone just being acknowledged for existing. As you can see, just pick your headline. All of these websites from The Gamer, Kotaku, GameRant, Comicbook.com, and more, they all disagree that Wukong should not be nominated for any of these awards. Polygon, for example, had their article titled, Black Myth Wukong is one of the lowest rated Game of the Year nominees in Game Awards history. The Monkey King made a big impression, despite worse than average scores. Right out of the gates, Polygon doesn't like that Wukong got nominated at all. After all, the game didn't even crack a 90 on Metacritic, so how could it be the best game of the year? It's almost as if Metacritic shouldn't be used as the be-all end-all metric that we dictate whether a game is worthy of our praise or time. Here's a part of what Polygon said about Wukong. Black Myth Wukong has been a centerpiece of the culture war within gaming. After IGN invested allegations of sexism at developer Game Science in November 2023. Speaking to several women in the Chinese gaming industry about misogynistic remarks by men at the studio, including CEO Fang Ji. Discussing the game on social media became almost unbearable in the following months as some right-wing figures took up its banner in a transparent effort to move their perceived online enemies. I guess they're referring to people like me because I guess liking the monkey game makes you a right-winger now? Sure, I guess I am because Wukong rocks. It wasn't so much used as a weapon, but simply an example of what players really wanted from games today. We don't want unnecessary pronoun gobbledygook, just give us a fun game, no alcohol required, and then let us alone to play it. I don't need checkboxes like different colors of people or genders in my game because Wukong has tons of diversity already. Maybe not in a human sense, but more so in how many weird creature goobers exist within it already. Polygon, of course, is one of these websites that really does hate conservative players and just wants everything to be gay and political always. It's in their DNA at this point, so of course they're mad that Wukong got nominated. But then again, Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year across the board pretty much back in 2014. And that game only has an 85 on Metacritic. Sure, other games may have scored higher, but again, Metacritic is not some god we must listen to. It's almost as if experiences resonate with people differently. Personally, I think Wukong is a solid 9, not a 10 mind you. Like I said, it needed more weapon variety, and the skill trees were pretty basic too. But for what it offered as a first-time game of this scope from a relatively unknown developer, they nailed it. I think we should be celebrating these sorts of games instead. But let's be real, Polygon and more would be more welcoming and supportive if maybe you could change your monkey's gender or give it pronouns or something else. But of course, since it's a game that rejects the Western mind virus, they are launching attacks on it instead. They're still using that IGN hit piece. I literally just read that they mentioned it in this Polygon article too. Then comicbook.com had their article titled Black Myth Wukong doesn't deserve a Game Awards nomination, and here's why. What's funny is that they say it doesn't deserve any awards, and then comicbook.com puts this in their own article, which states, when Black Myth Wukong launched back in August, it shattered all sorts of records. These records were specifically seen on Steam when it became the most concurrently played single-player game ever on the PC platform. It has since gone on to surpass 20 million copies sold and even assisted in driving sales of the PlayStation 5 even higher. Without a doubt, Black Myth Wukong has been a resounding achievement and shows the power that games hailing from China might have in the years to come. Do games journalists not understand how to write their articles? You just said why it doesn't deserve to win. Then you provide clear evidence as to why it deserves that win and why it's so significant. These people are serious, by the way. Comicbook.com then continues their article pretty much just saying that based on raw numbered scores, that Wukong has not reached the likes of other games that came out this year like Tekken 8 or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Yet it was nominated instead, which is fair enough, but have you considered that maybe scores shouldn't dictate 100% how things are judged all the time? It's like report cards for students. Just because one student doesn't have as high marks doesn't mean that they're now a lost cause. Clearly the game resonated and it won. We should celebrate that. It gives more games of similar levels, budgets, and whatnot the opportunity to shine just as bright. I see it as an absolute win in my book. I don't think it should be a prerequisite that a game needs to break 90 on Metacritic to get nominated. But maybe because I've long since been walking away from the gospel of game reviews for years now, that's just how I think. More often than not, if I really want a review, I'll just go on YouTube because I don't really care what IGN gives a game or really anything these days. They gave The Penguin a 5 out of 10, but they gave Agatha All Along an 8. Okay, IGN, sure, yeah, we'll listen to you alright because your opinions are not at all influenced by gender or politics. Of course not. Of course, when these journalists aren't complaining about games that didn't bend the knee, we gotta talk about a game that absolutely is bending all the joints to appease players now. Star Wars Outlaws came out a few months ago, you probably didn't play it. The game got cooked in reviews and sold only 1 million copies, which is terrible for a game that cost somewhere between $200 to $300 million and had the largest marketing budget in Ubisoft history. Now the game is trying to win players back, and is it working? Well, firstly, Ubisoft has put a new creative director in charge of Outlaws after the game has already come out. Yeah, I know, it's weird. The original creative director went back to working on the Division's future apparently, and this new creative director is pretty much being tasked with completely overhauling Outlaws' core gameplay experience. Ubisoft has already released one big update which now lets you switch shoulders when shooting. Yep, that was something that wasn't in the game originally. Don't ask me why, I don't have an answer for you. You can also now pick up weapons from fallen enemies and carry them for longer periods of time, like up ladders for example. Before the game limited you to just using your blaster gun and that's pretty much, any gun you picked up you couldn't use besides where it was or in that level I guess. You still can't hold, multiple guns and then swap them like in say Doom or something, but it's a step in the right direction I guess. Ubisoft also recently said they are removing all required stealth from the game. Apparently before when it first released, you could fail many moments in Outlaws by not stealthing around. This is now gone from the game entirely. You can either go guns blazing all you want or stick to stealth, whatever you want to do. Besides these changes, they fixed a bunch of bugs and they reduced the game's price as it just launched on Steam as well. Which is a first for Ubisoft to do so early on. They usually keep their games tied to Ubisoft Plus PC-wise anyway. But when the situation is as dire as this, they can't be picky. And with all of these quality of life updates, price slashing, and more promises to come, The game has debuted on Steam within the first few hours at 340 players concurrently.
What's going on? Why don't they like it? We spent $250 million on this.
Yeah, not the kind of numbers you'd want for a game this expensive. Honestly, this is insane to see, dude. It shows how tarnished these games' reputations are getting. Nobody wanted Man Solo, and Star Wars in general just cooked already as a brand. I mean, 340 players for a single-player AAA Star Wars game. Holy crap, dude, that's bad. Of course, this is the player count as of the making of this video when I'm editing. It could be higher by the time you're seeing this. Regardless, for your debut first few hours on Steam, which has millions of players, this is not a good sign. I guess to put some good news in this video, Farming Simulator 25 has sold 2 million copies in a week from release. So yeah, people went out and bought a game about farming and tending to their land over stuff like Outlaws and Veilguard. This is where we're at as a gaming community right now, guys. As for Outlaws, even with 2 big overall quality of life updates, a new DLC called Wildcard debuting officially, and the Steam release, Ubisoft's Star Wars game is just not doing well for them at all. Honestly, I find their dedication admirable to at least go back and fix these things. Apparently now enemies have weak points. So wait, they didn't in the original game? What is even happening at Ubisoft, man? Come on, dude. But if you want me to check out Outlaws myself, I got a simple request, Ubisoft. You gotta go back and fix Kay Vess's face and give her a better shaped body too. No more of this cardboard isn't a man or a woman or either body type you keep doing to all of your characters in all the games. Make Kay Vess look like the actor she's based on. We know you did art with this in mind already. I have the artwork. It's right here on screen for you all to see. So make Kay Vess look like how she was supposed to look, and then I think you'll see players start showing up more, but the ball is in their court. Apparently, they also fixed the facial animations in Outlaws. I can't tell you whether they were good or not before, but I would wager, based on everything else missing, that Outlaws was released as less than a half-baked product at launch clearly. But I do think Ubisoft should be commended at least for trying to fix their screw-ups. Now, will it work? So far anyway on Steam, no it hasn't. But we'll have to see, especially since they're charging less for the game now too. All they really had to do from the get-go was make the game star Han Solo and set it before the movies. They would have made a gajillion dollars already. But all well, that's what happens when you steal your female character's ass and make them look like a they-them, and then ship your game without enemy weak points, weapon carrying, or shoulder swapping. My god, man, when I say that out loud, it's so ridiculous that it's even true. But that's the news on Outlaws right now. Ubisoft is desperate to win players back, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future, I guess. But as you can see, a lot is happening in gaming right now. This was a weird video to make. We went from Stalker and the whole Ukraine-Russia thing to China with Wukong and Ubisoft with Outlaws. I guess you never know what you're going to get when you watch a video on this channel, but to be honest, sometimes even I don't know until I sit down and get to writing things myself. And the whole Stalker thing kind of makes me feel reminiscent of Atomic Heart in a way, but in reverse. Remember when gaming journalists attempted to get people to reject Atomic Heart because of its connections to Russia? And claimed that we gotta boycott it, and then it ended up like exploding and selling millions? Yeah, it's pretty tiresome, man. Look, I don't blame Russian people for being Russian the same way you should in any other kind of person. Governments will always enact their will in some way, but it's up to us as a global community to speak about these things. And keep the conversation going no matter what, because without your right to free speech, no matter or how free or limited it may be, you have nothing else without it. So please speak your minds, please keep talking, and please never shy away from telling the truth. It's the only way that we can change things, my friends, so never back down ever. Thank you for watching, subscribe, thanks to my supporters, and I'll see you in the next one.